Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Peace's guest speaker series as we've been talking to lawyer and paralegal bencher candidates in the upcoming election. As always, the views and opinions are of the candidates alone. They don't reflect me, Justice and Peace's Trials College, or any other education institution or organization that I'm affiliated with. Continuing this afternoon, we have Jacqueline that is joining us here, telling us a little bit more about herself. And I guess that's where we can start. Jacqueline, you can tell us who you are, and once again, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Well, I really appreciate the invitation, JP, to come and talk to you. I am a lawyer and bencher candidate in the 2023 LSO election. I've been a lawyer in Ontario since 2003 and went to Ottawa U. Started in private practice here in Ottawa, so I'm a candidate in the East region. I worked in private practice for a few years before having to leave on maternity leave. So my practice is devoted to criminal law. So I was in court every day, all day, almost right up to my mat leave. And then I actually left the country for a little while. I went to Barbados to work as a judicial assistant. And I was there for a couple of years before coming back to Canada to resume my practice. And that proved a little bit difficult. I couldn't get back into private practice, so I pivoted, which is kind of a key word for us since COVID. I pivoted and started working for the government. So I now am a lawyer, a general counsel with the Department of Justice in Ottawa, doing international criminal law, so extraditions, mutual legal assistance, and that kind of thing. And I've been there for about 13, 14 years now. Before all of that, my legal career actually started in Montreal. I was a paralegal in Montreal. And before that, a legal secretary. So I've kind of worked my way up through the law to where I am now. And hopefully this time, in a couple of months, I will be introducing myself as a new bencher at the Law Society.
Right. So, thanks for sharing that journey there. And I think, again, the next step, as you point out, is looking to be elected as a bencher. So what brought you, from all of the things that you're doing into now considering, or not considering, because you're running for bencher and hopefully for your sake there to get elected?
Well, actually, all of those experiences brought me to where I am right now. Since I started my practice, I have been interested in kind of the administration of law. So, you work in our practice and we focus on our practice, but I've always been interested in how the Law Society runs and what it does and what it's supposed to do for lawyers and for the public. And it starts with, as a junior lawyer, when I was articling and when I was called and in private practice, just the use of resources, right? So I'm in court every day, and every so often you're confronted with just questions from the judge. You're like, I need some research. So I'd be using the resources at the law library, and I speak very highly of the CCLA in that regard. The county, Carleton County Law Association is the one that I was the member of at the time, and took full advantage of the resources that were available to me. The librarians were exceptionally useful. The conferences were exceptionally useful that we would attend every year at Montebello. So those are the kind of things that kept me attached to the Law Society. And it was of particular relevance at that point to see, I'm paying the fees and I'm actually seeing the tangible assets that were helpful to my practice. I was a legal aid lawyer as well, so I'm seeing where those funds are utilized and how I can assist. And I wanted to give back, and part of my my practice since then has been about giving back. So one of the things that I did with the Law Society in particular was contribute to the Women's Equality Advisory Group at the time, which was particularly near and dear to my heart because when I left my private practice, it was for very, very female reasons. It was because I left on mat leave. So getting the reintegration into the law after mat leave, into private practice after mat leave was something that I wanted to work on, and the retention of women in private practice project was something that I worked on back in the day. And now I work with the Equity Advisory Group, and I started off as a member, and now I'm the co-chair of that group. So I've been working with the Law Society in some form or fashion, not as bencher, but in some way throughout my career. And I'm very proud to have done that and to contribute in that way.
Now, if you're elected as bencher, what are the issues here in this upcoming election that that are important to you, and what are the things you'd like to see implemented if elected?
Well, the issues that are important to me right now are the same issues that have always been. I think we as a profession, being self-regulated is a privilege. And I would love to see more transparency from the Law Society towards the members so that we know what's going on, so that we understand what's happening. There's a vast segment of lawyers in Ontario that don't really pay attention for personal reasons as well as professional reasons. I'm a government lawyer, and it seemed once I transitioned that the Law Society was of less relevance to me in government because there was a whole other set of policies and oversight that I needed to respect. So really when I pay attention is around, the annual report. And I'm like, oh, right, I have to fill that out. Okay, good. But even as I'm talking to people around the bencher elections, what I'm realizing is there's a lot of people who don't vote for benchers. So the governance of our profession is in the hands of people who may or may not have been elected by the majority of lawyers. And that I find a little bit challenging. I mean, it's not unlike, provincial or federal or municipal politics, but it's challenging because then decisions are being made about us, for us, without our real input. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running, because I think I have a voice. I have a particular voice. And I could sit back and let other people think for me or act on my behalf, or I could get a seat at the table and actually speak for myself. And I'm a very strong proponent of the speaking for yourself or speaking up and letting people know what your thoughts are. And I think it's important that we all do that we all let people know, look, here's my perspective on that issue. And the consultations that the Law Society has every year on a variety of issues, I would love to see more input from the communities that the Law Society is supposed to serve.
Yeah, it's also funny there that the guest today was the annual report deadline, and it's like an April Fool's joke for some of us. You wake up and you're like, oh no, I forgot to submit my report there. But besides that, as you point out that there's a lack of voter turnout, right? I mean, I think the last time it was 30% who voted, and again, we don't know what the result is going to be this time. But one of the big changes, and you reference federal and provincial politics there, is that we have kind of like two parties running, whether they want to call themselves a slate and a coalition respectively, or a team and a coalition respectively. And you're running unaffiliated in this election, which normally, again, if you go back to 2015 and previously to my knowledge, right, it was just how everyone ran, right? As everyone was kind of, here's why you should vote for me. Now you're in this election where there are, again, the Full Stop team and the Good Governance Coalition. What are your thoughts on people kind of running as units or factions, and what impact do you think this is going to have on the election for both you as a candidate and for the voters that have votes?
I think in some form or fashion, there have always been units and factions in elections. I think that that people campaign together, people run together, people share resources. So they become unified in just, kind of guilty by association type in that kind of way. I'm not troubled by it. I think it helps us to identify what a person or group's mandate is or what they stand for. As an independent candidate, I think there's some advantages and disadvantages to being independent when there are two very clear coalitions, two very clear platforms that are on the table, because the danger is that people are told vote for this slate or vote for this coalition without more information. And I'm trusting that the lawyers in Ontario want more information than just that they will actually dig a little bit deeper, get to know the candidates, and learn what they stand for, learn what they believe in, learn who they are as people. And one of the things that I think in any event is that I will stand by my reputation. I will stand, and whether you want to vote good governance or full stop, I will stand on my beliefs and my values, and I will trust that the lawyers who do hear what I have to say or learn about me and my background will be encouraged to vote for me, because the things that I am unequivocal about are things like I think that equity issues are important. I think that we need to recognize that there are some disparities in the way different people are treated, even lawyers. We sit in a position of privilege, and that privilege does not insulate the lawyers who look like me all the time. It doesn't insulate us from discrimination and mistreatment. It doesn't insulate us from not getting files and not getting opportunities and access to opportunities. We're not insulated from not getting articling positions, and I think that needs to be recognized. And I think the Law Society has a role in addressing those concerns. I don't think that is fake wokeness. I don't think that is scope creep. I think that actually speaks to the mandate of the Law Society, which is competence and access to justice. I think that's a huge issue. And sitting in a space where people don't recognize that is troubling for me, but I'm not afraid to confront that space. And part of the reason why I did decide to run is because I was tired of asking others to speak for me and stand up against that kind of thing when I'm easily able to do it myself, and to be here and to be present for the conversation. I also believe that competency in the legal profession is another huge issue, that we need to make sure that our licensees are fully competent to take on the files that they're being charged and mandated to take on by their clients. That if we're going to be a self-regulating profession, we need to make sure that all of us are well trained, and that where there are gaps, we fill those gaps. That if there is, bad behavior, that we deal with it, and we deal with it appropriately, but that there's transparency in how we're doing business, how we're conducting ourselves as a law society, as regulators, that the licensees do know what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it, so that there's clear policies, that there's clear procedures, and that there's involvement from the licensees as well. I believe in all of those things.
Now you brought up, and again, the terms, stop bloat, stop creep, stop woke, in terms of the full stop team there, and then you've pointed out, well, I disagree with those concepts or those the phrases there, right, in terms of what you've said there. So perhaps maybe you can expand on why this is a problem, in terms of if the Law Society's focus goes into that direction, why does that create a problem from your perspective as a result?
Why does it create a problem if they stop the equity initiatives that they're currently engaged in?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, should this be in the Law Society's kind of, I guess, mandate, right? Of if should they be more, you brought up competency, maybe, part of the argument is that should be the focus, right? That look at making sure that those gaps are addressed, but all of this other stuff is, part of going too much in one direction, perhaps, or going over, and it's kind of making it more difficult for the Law Society to focus on those competencies issues because they're doing all of these other things.
Well, I don't I don't think that it does. I think that we can do both. I think that what we're looking for is more acknowledgement that there is a, a, a problem, and historically has been a problem that we need to address. And I don't think that takes away from dealing with competency issues. I don't think the two are married. I think when you're asking somebody, so I'm going to give you a very concrete example. In the province of Ontario, until very recently, we had a role within our court system that was called the case management master. And we're sending licensees in to deal with cases and having to refer to somebody as master. Now, that's a very clear, basic example. If you're giving me a file, and this has happened to me when I was in my early years, I'm given a civil file and I'm sent into court and I'm saying, okay, so this person is not a judge, this person is not a JP, this person is called case management master. What is their title? How do I refer to this person? This is a very basic example. Even children can understand this because you're taught from a very young age, this is Mr. So-and-so, this is Miss So-and-so, this is, Professor So-and-so. So their titles are important. So I'm being sent in and I'm told, okay, you call this person master. Well, as a person of African descent, that has problems and particular implications for me. And in my professional life, I never expected to have to do something like that. And I shouldn't be forced to explain to somebody why this is a problem. So even looking at something with a critical eye through equity and inclusion and diversity means that those types of issues are addressed because they do affect a person in the profession. I pay my fees like everybody else, and it affected my ability to work. That is a competency issue. It affected my ability to carry out that file with sound judgment and logic because I'm preoccupied by something that is exterior to it. So it's something that was easily fixed, right? So if we look at issues with a lens of let's not harm people, and people's inherent value and dignity is important. That is really what equity is about. When we're talking about civility within the legal profession, that is a dignity issue. That is respect. And equity, inclusion, diversity is all about dignity and respect. So I don't see why we would consider it otherwise. I don't see why that would be outside of the mandate of the Law Society. That would be as if we're telling the Law Society that it's operating in this social vacuum and it's immune from what's going on in the rest of the world and society. And I don't think that's honest. I don't think that's real. And I don't think that that is the way that the Law Society should be conducting ourselves, especially if we're mandated to protect society.
And another thing that does come up, and you mentioned the time there before relying on the resources of the CCLA, and the other big thing I hear about is the law libraries and how they should be funded. Should the Law Society? I mean, certainly not. No one's suggesting to cancel funding altogether, but how should the funds be kind of directed towards the law associations there? So perhaps maybe you can share about the importance. I'm presuming the importance of the CCLA there to you, and why that should be continuing to come from the Law Society.
Well, I think the law libraries are a huge resource because it often is the first stop that a junior lawyer will make, and sometimes even a more senior lawyer. When you're in court and you're forced, you're on the spot, and I may be dating myself because this is before the age of bringing your laptop into court, and you're basically there with your criminal code in one hand and your file in the other. But you're on the spot, you need a case, you need help, you need, you're in the middle of the action. You don't have a lot of time to go back to the office and do research or to task somebody else with doing the research. That's what the law library is there for. So that you can go upstairs, because in Ottawa, the criminal courts are usually on the first floor and the library was on the second. So you go to the library and you do your research, and the computers are there, the librarian's there, the books are there, the resources are there and available to you. And that is something that is invaluable. That's something that has always been available. So why would we cut back on a resource that is so necessary, so essential? If the Law Society decides that that is what it wants to do, then I think that the lawyers, the licensees, the paralegals should be asked, is this a resource that is no longer useful, no longer sustainable, no longer in its current form? Perhaps that there is room to evolve, go more electronic. But I don't think that the resource itself should be completely defunded, disbanded, or what have you. I think that it's incumbent on the Law Society to maintain that. It does have a role to play in maintaining the competency, because it's a learning tool. It's a resource that has always been available and should always be available.
Now, I just wanted to touch on if there's anything else. Now, we've talked about a few issues there, but if there's anything else that's really important to you in this upcoming election about who you are and what you would do as bencher. And I want to give you, a chance here to highlight anything we may have missed.
Well, what I will do as bencher is listen. That's the one thing I can absolutely commit to. I will listen. I will I demonstrate good judgment. I have good judgment, sound judgment. And in order to make good decisions, I think listening is a key important skill. And I'm respectful to others' opinions. I'm happy to hear them and share them and exchange with other people so that I can learn more about what it is that the Law Society is trying to do when it's making its decisions. The priorities that come up on a day-to-day basis, what I can commit to also is making sure that any decision that I make is well-founded, well-reasoned. But the things that are important to me are things that I've already spoken of. Our equity issues are hugely important to me. I've been working in equity for, I would say, my whole life. And as a lawyer, even more so, even more prominently, I've been working on equity issues and diversity issues in some form or fashion. I firmly believe that I would be a really good bencher, and I think that you can trust that with me, I will listen to the facts. I will make a sound decision, a well-reasoned decision, and I will listen to the people. I will listen to the lawyers and the paralegals who are affected by decisions. I think that's all that a good bencher can be called upon to do, really.
And I know it's been a little bit, but you used to have time there with paralegal students, and I certainly hope I have some of my paralegal students listening and learning more about all the different candidates. But if you can reflect back to that time, maybe you've shared some words of wisdom and advice to your students in the past. But for any students that's listening and looking to get into the profession, what would you say to them?
I would say that our profession is challenging but wonderful. I have taught a number of paralegals. I was teaching at Algonquin College for about 13 years, and my students have always challenged me in some form or fashion through their questions and their curiosity. And I would say maintain that. That is a wonderful asset in law, because it allows you to look at things through fresh eyes, a new way, to be creative and innovative with law. And it is a profession that has seen growth and flexibility and movement through different areas. It is always adaptable. It's the tree, right? It's that analogy of the growing tree, because it isn't static. And that is something that's really, really exciting about law. And 20 years in, I'm still excited about it. I'm still enthused getting up every morning and doing what I do. but keep an open mind. Keep your eyes open for options, for opportunities, because my career has not been linear. It has been kind of very circuitous. I've been all over the place, and opportunities are really what has steered the ship, because things are interesting, and where you think that you are going to end up is not necessarily where you will end up. I started off thinking I wanted to be a family lawyer, and nope, not at all. So it's an exciting career.
Perfect. So, final question for any of the lawyers that are tuning in here and have up to 40 votes. Why should they use a vote on you?
Well, if anything that I have said in this last half hour has resonated with you, that is why you should vote for me, because I stand firm in my convictions, because I am a good listener, I am a good advocate, and I am somebody who can be trusted to keep my word.
Perfect. So once again, thanks for taking the time to join us here this afternoon. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you, JP. I appreciate the opportunity.